As of late, Payday 3's model has been under some pretty intense scrutiny. Ever since Almir directly addressed the always online question on one of the official Payday streams, there's been a massive wave of negative community sentiment around that business decision. I haven't waded in on this one yet, as I assume there'd be some sort of clarifying statement to follow, and I absolutely hate the tendency we have to bandwagon against something without all of the details. But it's been a couple of weeks now, so I think it's about time I gave my perspective on Payday 3 as an always online server-driven title, as well as touching on wider elements of the live service model that has so many potential pitfalls for the longevity of any game. Already set to become a freemium-style game with the eventual addition of microtransactions, in business model alone, Payday 3 is quickly starting to resemble the kind of behemoth that typifies the highly corporate and profit-motivated world of 2023's game industry. And I'd be lying if I said that didn't scare me somewhat. There's a mammoth-sized graveyard burying beloved games by the week at this point for flying too close to the sun with their greedy new age approaches, and I worry that heading too far in the always online live service direction might result in a similar eventual outcome for Payday 3, unless the execution is absolutely flawless. However, those of you I see from time to time gleefully exclaiming that the game is dead on arrival and has no hope of success reek of schadenfreude, and drawing on my ancestral heritage for the right phrase, are chatting a load of bollocks. Believe it or not, having played Payday 3 and spoken to many of the developers behind the game, at its core it's a passion project with an absolutely delicious gameplay loop that will blow most of us heading into it with an open mind out of the water. I find these strangely sadistic, dead-on-arrival claims to be a distasteful dismissal of the work that's been done with Payday 3, and will refute them passionately, even though I'm happy to share my own worries for certain aspects of the game. That's a little bit of context on my perspective heading into this video, so let's see why Starbreeze are going ahead with this model, why it could be problematic, and what I'd like to see as somewhat of a compromise moving forwards. First of all, what is always online? Well, essentially it's a form of DRM, requiring an internet connection to a server to allow a game to be played regardless of whether you're playing it online with others. Some single-player experiences have leveraged this approach purely for digital rights management reasons, which is a lot harder to stomach for most, but Payday 3 claims to require persistent online authentication for the sake of its cross-play and cross-progression systems. That does make a degree of logical sense, but there's a huge amount of compromise required to make this work, starting from the day Payday 3 launches. Just to quickly address Almir's statements about the game always requiring an internet connection to play, from watching his streams, I think it's seriously commendable that he takes the time out to answer virtually every unique question he receives in chat. Even if the topic is something that he can't address fully yet, he'll read it out and say why, which is wonderful from a developer transparency perspective. Sometimes though, this can backfire, as many comments I've read have criticised his candidness when addressing always online as being dismissive. Even I have to admit it doesn't seem like there's much of an action plan when it comes to handling any server outages and downtime, which seems to be emblematic of the slight naivety Starbreeze are heading into this situation with. This wouldn't be the first time the studio had bitten off more than it could chew with servers, pun intended, and to be completely transparent, I anticipate that there will be downtime on release week. Technically, things seldom go exactly to plan, so saddling Payday 3 with an always online burden will be problematic in at least some capacity. Don't get me wrong, games can recover from poor release weeks, but this is a key period for player retention, which is absolutely essential for any live service continuation, as fixed costs are so much higher and require an active player base to cover. Any potential server outages at launch pale in comparison, though, to the end-of-life issues brought about by Always Online. When an Always Online game is shuttered and the servers go down, that's the end of it. There is no way to go back and experience that video game, at least through normal means. This is an absolute travesty, especially for a franchise like Payday, which has had immense longevity, and I'm willing to bet will continue to have a core player base playing its older titles, even after Payday 3 comes out. The idea of Payday 2, a game which I've poured thousands of hours into, going offline in September, never to be playable again, is a gut-wrenching thought, which is why it's a good job Payday 2 requires no servers, can be played completely offline, and functions peer-to-peer. Now imagine 10 years down the line when support ends for Payday 3, and ultimately it functionally disappears from our game libraries for good. Video games with expiry dates are a lot less appealing than those without. Now, all that said, let's just touch on the why of it all. Right now, we're being told that Always Online is being implemented due to crossplay, but more importantly, cross-progression, a new feature for Payday 3 that confirms console and PC parity and will even allow you to carry your account between platforms. This is all excellent, although both functions aren't mandatory. I've heard some people suggest that you can just leave those who want to interact with these systems on always online, and those who don't care can opt into an offline mode, but I can understand why Starbreeze are hesitant to split and segregate the community once again. Let's not forget, there's a huge push launching with Payday 3 to try and bring console players back into the fold, and everyone on PC just matching peer-to-peer or playing offline hardly gives rise to that one community the guys are striving for. But that said, I wouldn't have been surprised if the game chose to be always online, even without these functions in the game. Let's not forget, always online is at its core a form of DRM used to make piracy more difficult. A lot of money has been left on the table due to piracy being rife within Payday 2's player base, and so from a business perspective, bearing in mind that's what my background is really in, always online must seem like a perfect solution. The problem is, it's not going to be the pirates that end up suffering. 9 times out of 10, in my experience, people inclined to pirate things do so either because they just can't afford the alternative, or wouldn't care enough to purchase the content in the first place. As such, preventing their piracy doesn't necessarily recoup the sales economists might expect, but it does have a knock-on impact on players who would otherwise love to play and spend money on the game. Those with inconsistent internet connections that might be highly impacted by weather will struggle to play an always online game that doesn't give them offline options. They'll be the ones suffering from this decision, not the would-be pirates, and that's why I believe a hybrid solution would be absolutely ideal. Even from my perspective, as someone who does a lot of solo offline recording, Payday 3's always online approach is going to be problematic, making it harder for me to record and create content for the game on the move, which obviously has a knock-on effect on Payday's social media presence and could impact long-run community interest in the title. Mods, which is another point of uncertainty for Payday 3 at the moment, will also surely take a hit from this approach, with online integrity checks going some way to prevent hacks and cheats, but also potentially limiting the modding options that has, let's be honest, carried PC Payday during massive content droughts in the past. My perspective is that an offline mode would fix most of these woes. The vast majority of players will be happy to play online, but with the option for offline play, the launch is guaranteed to be better received, more players will be able to access and enjoy the game from different platforms, and we never have to fear all the hours we're putting in will be for naught when the inevitable server shutdown takes place. I'm worried that there isn't going to be enough time for Starbreeze to pivot and add an offline mode prior to launch, but I absolutely encourage you to let the devs know how positively you would receive such an addition. It's not an unreasonable ask, and if the devs care half as much about the game as I believe they do, they'll do everything in their power to make it a long-term success. The gameplay I've played is deserving of as many eyes on it as possible, and just from reading my own comment section, this is absolutely something that needs to be addressed one way or another. I, for one, would appreciate a technical explanation of why this has been the chosen approach and clear action plan moving forward with it. I want to know there will still be a functional game there after however long Payday 3 is actively developed. As for the other evils of modern gaming, your microtransactions and additional in-game purchases, I also think the sooner that model is out in the open for scrutiny, the better. My impression is that a lot of these business practices are not about sustainability of a live service title or long-term profits. Microtransactions are synonymous with short-term capitalistic gain, pay-to-win or skip-the-grind mechanics, and are so often detrimental to everyone's overall gameplay experience. If the game is going to feature them, Starbreeze damn well better read the room and nail the execution, or we can end up with yet another act of self-sabotage. In any case, I'm going to end this one on a cheerier note. Payday 3 still looks amazing, the dev diaries are giving me more and more confidence in the core gameplay loop, and I hope we'll get another hands-on with the game soon, so more people get a chance to try out all the new mechanics. The only word of caution I have is that no matter how good a game is, if it hardly functions due to arbitrary systems you've put in place for all the wrong reasons, it's truly difficult to get excited about. Here's hoping that Starbreeze have their fingers on the pulse with this one and are prepared to adapt Payday 3 into the game we all desperately want it to be. Thanks a lot for watching, more of my old Payday 2 favourites coming your way shortly with the story of Texas Heat and another challenge run just around the corner. Take care, I'll see you all very soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.